Whoa, can you guys hear me? Cool. Awesome. Sorry, technical issue with one of the other coaches. Give me 1 second here. Cool. Yeah, that should be all taken care of. Nice shirt, Sarah. Awesome. Yeah.
Wearing them all the time.
Yeah, a couple of my athletes, they met up over the weekend at the Seashore 50K, and they got a picture together with their matching microcosm shirts. And I'm like super excited about it.
I
Um,
saw that picture and yeah, I felt very excited as well.
yeah, that like totally made my day. Um, if you are one of the few people out there who ordered a white shirt, please be patient because of the issues with COVID and supply and demand. Those finally got back from the printer just yesterday, Drew told me. And because we're traveling like everybody else for the holidays, it doesn't really make sense to have Drew ship them and for them to sit on my front porch for 3 weeks. We're going to be gone for 3 weeks. Um, but what I'm hoping to do is I'm going to be in Arkansas, so I'm going to get those shirts from Drew and hopefully ship them out from there. Because I know there's like 4 or 5 of you guys who have been waiting a really long time for those white shirts, um, myself included, because I really like to race in a white shirt. Um, so I promise they're coming, and I thank you guys for your patience. It is really helpful. I've only gotten a couple emails about it, which just made my life really easy. So thank you guys. Anyways, yeah, gosh, we've been well, happy holidays, I guess, to start things off officially. It's kind of the holiday week. And I know, yeah, at least for me, I start to get a little stressed during the holidays because of all the travel and like how am I going to get my runs in? And like, I don't know, my family puts quite a bit of pressure on me to be very present with them. Um, and that's because we didn't spend a lot of holidays together for the better part of 10 years. And so now over the last couple of years, we've been doing holidays together. And so there's expectations. And I know it's even worse, or it, well, depending on how you frame it, it's more challenging if you're a parent. It's more challenging if, you're working. Not everybody gets the holidays off. So yeah, it's a tough time of year. And I don't want to do like the doom and gloom thing about the holidays. And if you checked out the newsletter, I hope that it didn't seem like that because I really love the holidays and we really emphasize and prioritize family time at Microcosm. Like I always say, family and family time comes first. And so like the holidays should be like a really uplifting and joyful time. But I know based on a lot of feedback that I've gotten as a coach over the last few years, that's not always the case, or there's always like an ebb and flow during the holidays, highs and lows and whatnot. Um, so yeah, I guess this call is kind of all about that, and it's the end of the year. At least yeah, I feel like it's the end of the year. This is the last call for 2021 that we're going to do. Um, and maybe before we jump into, talking about how to train during the holidays and manage stress and things like that, yeah, I just want to give a big shout out to all you guys who have been on the calls, who listen afterwards when we post these things on YouTube or the podcast. We really appreciate that. This entire process is athlete driven, start to finish. We wouldn't be doing these calls are addressing these topics if it wasn't for you guys, whether you're asking us questions in the training logs, engaging on Facebook with the question, or sending in questions in an email, all of that. Without that kind of stuff, I feel like I'd be a little bit lost. So thank you guys, and also amazing work. It's just been so cool to see how this team like has transitioned out of 2020 and through 2021. I think everybody should be really proud of themselves for the work that they've done. It just like, it hasn't been easy. I know that it hasn't. I know there's been a lot of grinding. But your hard work, I mean, it shows every week in the Rad Weekend updates. Your coaches are super proud of you. And even if you're an athlete who hasn't been racing, or you're working through other things that are challenging, it could be life stuff, it could be an injury. We're still really proud of you. It's not always about the goals and the races. In fact, I think that kind of stuff is really quite secondary. And so I hope you guys take the holidays as an opportunity, and as we get closer to the new year, to just like take a step back and reflect on all the great work that you've done. I, from time to time, like to browse the Rad Weekend update archives, because there is just so much amazing stuff there. I mean, gosh, it's pretty unbelievable to see what you guys have been up to and work through. Like, gosh, so cool. All right, well, I've got Kristen and Sarah here to assist me in this call, and I know that yeah, Kylie is going to be joining us a little bit later. So we should have a pretty good crew, and I'm looking forward to hearing from some of you guys too. If you'd like to use the hand function and or the chat box, that's always nice, because you guys offer a lot of really great perspectives. We have such like a depth of background and experience levels and everything. And so, your tips and little tricks for training around the holidays and just kind of dealing with like holiday stress and anxiety is welcomed. And I think that it would really be helpful for everybody else on this call to hear from you guys. So if something comes up, don't be afraid to stop one of us. Yeah, just be like, hey, I'd like to contribute. So, gosh, I mean, this is pretty off the cuff, but we did write a newsletter on it this week, and I've put some really great guidelines up on the blog. But maybe before we talk about specifics on training, I think we should just kind of start with like just holiday stress and anxiety, because that's kind of like where, at least for me, it all starts. Yeah, and Sarah wrote some really great tips that were included in this week's newsletter. And I think maybe just kind of diving into this list, and I don't know if you guys have seen that or not, but it's super awesome. And I think, the holiday season, it's just like so much about giving back, giving to our families, spending time with our families, all this stuff. Preparing like the house for guests, getting the kids ready for presents under the tree, whatever it is, there's a lot of expectations, I think, that kind of get wrapped up into all of that. And I think it can become, really overwhelming. I don't know if any of you guys have experienced that. I certainly have, at least to some extent. And when I go home for the holidays in my house, my mom, she's like that kind of like that giver, where she forgets about herself completely and just wants to do everything perfectly and give as much as possible. But I think we all sort of know that that's a little bit unsustainable at times, and that can lead to like some breakdowns. So we kind of want to avoid that stuff. And I know Sarah, it's a really simple tip, but she mentions to remember to give to yourself during the holidays. And that, I don't take that to mean like give yourself presence, but maybe give yourself the ability to rest, to take a step back, to be present and with yourself and not to worry, so much about how other people are doing for a few minutes and just to check in with yourself. Sarah, could you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, right. It seems so like counterintuitive to during the season of giving to be like, don't think about other people and think about yourself. But I think that because like a lot of us just naturally tend to think about other people anyway. And then because of the spirit of the holidays, we're really thinking about other people. And that's fine and that's good. And it's great to be in that spirit. But if you're not taking care of yourself first and foremost and meeting your own needs, then you're not going to be able to give to other people in the way that you want to. And you're going to come into Christmas morning feeling burnt out and stressed and like not able to enjoy the day and be present and that sort of thing. And so even though I think we should just be able to take care of ourselves because we're humans and we deserve that, that can be hard for people to accept. And so an easier way to frame it for some people is like taking care of yourself allows you to get into that giving spirit in a greater capacity because you're not feeling resentful, you're feeling full and able to give more.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think you explained that really, really well. And I think you also sum it up really well in just this one sentence here. It says like your physical and emotional needs are still the same, even though you have extra responsibilities during the holidays. And I think that that's just really key to recognize. So I know, we talk about like managing stress and we're all really busy and we have jobs, we have to make money and we have kids and we have to deal with those priorities and responsibilities. And sometimes the first way to help deal with managing all of that when it becomes overwhelming is giving up some of the running. That is the easiest way to manage life's happenings. And even though we're all athletes and we're all training at a really high level, everybody engaged with a running coach and putting in the time every day is engaging with the process at a high level. It can be hard to like let some of that running go. But that's often like the most controllable variable that we all have. However, I think Sarah is right in mentioning you don't have to let running go completely. It doesn't have to be always the first thing that you give up. And so like part of taking care of yourself is engaging with the things that make you feel good. The things that kind of align with your values and things like that. We've spoken a lot about that recently. And I think it's just important to recognize that like during the holidays, we feel like we could be pulled in many different directions. But if running is something that you feel helps you take care of yourself, I think it's okay to prioritize that, but maybe to reframe it a little bit. And the way that I would do that is just reducing maybe the amount of running that you're doing and just holding things a little bit looser. Yeah, I don't know, Sarah or Kristen, if that kind of brings anything to mind for you guys. Because yes, running is like the most controllable stress like variable that we have. We can easily manipulate that when it's like hard to be like, I'm not gonna take the kids ice skating or something. Like that's a little less, we don't have that flexibility, right? Or I can't be like, well, I'm just like not gonna do whatever on Christmas Eve with my parents. That's just like not gonna happen. So like, yeah, what's kind of your recommendation there? How do we not let running be the first thing that we let go of, but also, how do we do that while recognizing that running does create stress too?
I think I don't have kids. My sister does, and I know that they're exhausting. They're wonderful, but they're also exhausting. And so one thing that I have to do, is like, I have to get my run out of the way right away. If I want to run that day, I know that I have to be a little more on top of it, plan ahead a little bit. And just whether it's an easy run or a workout, it's got to get done before I show up at my sister's house and chase the kids around for 5 hours, because at the end of that, I don't know how you parents do it. I have so much respect for all of you. Children are exhausting. The other thing too is that even if I don't run, if I need to sleep in, whatever, I engage so much with the kids that my phone goes in a different room. Like my husband knows, like, oh, she's with her sister's kids. We're not talking, because I'm not going to be on my phone. I am with those kids. Same goes for, hanging out with my parents. I like try to keep the phone time to a minimum. And I think it's especially important over the holidays, but 2020, 2021, these 2 years have been tough. There have been a lot of uncertainties. My dad just got out of the ICU with COVID. So like, I am so stoked to just like hang out and have some like face-to-face one-on-one interactions with my parents. But in order to do that, I know that I have to get my run done first sometimes. And that's not selfish. That's just, that's just the logistics of the holidays. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'm not going to beat myself up, because, I will hopefully be able to run for the rest of my life. That is the goal. That is the plan. But I'm not going to have my parents around for the rest of my life. I'm not going to be able to like spend the time with my niece and 2 nephews, the quality time, because they're not going to want, kids get older. Once they're teenagers, you do not have their attention anymore. There is a finite amount of time to spend with them. And so I have to remind myself of that a lot. So as much as I love running, and as much as I, am focused on my training, sometimes family comes first. And Freya's trying to say hi, but that's okay.
That's awesome. Yeah, Sarah,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I really like that, like that idea of like, be here now, like whatever you're doing, be present in that. And so like compartmentalizing your time and planning your time. So the things that you can plan ahead for. So if like your kid's school schedule, or when things really pick up at work, and those sorts of things, and you can talk to your coach and say, hey, like December is going to be a down month for me, and you can kind of plan for those things. Like if you struggle with the like guilt around shortening your workouts, or like not doing exactly what's prescribed, touch base with your coach and ask them to take some things out so that you don't feel that pressure. And I would really encourage not taking things out completely, but reducing miles. So like getting out for 30 minutes is always better than doing nothing in terms of helping your running economy, and get used to just like being out there. So, try to do that. And I would encourage you to like schedule that and look at that ahead of time, in like a time when you're feeling calm and not emotional, because in the moment when our emotions are taking over, it can be really hard to problem solve, and things can look big or difficult, and we don't see the obvious thing of like, oh, I'm not going to do 5 miles today, I can go out for 25 minutes. But if you take the time to set yourself up ahead of time and make those decisions ahead of time, when you're in like a calmer place, then when you're overwhelmed, like that's less likely to happen. So I definitely encourage that. And then I also think, like, TJ asked about like, what's that balance of, am I letting go of something that's important to me and good to me, or am I letting go of something that's a stressor? So a lot of times I find that people will be like, oh yeah, I'm not running, and also I didn't eat breakfast today, and I've been just like eating whatever I can, and my sleep's been terrible. So if you're noticing that all the buckets where you're missing things are your self-care buckets, that's probably an indication that you're dropping the thing, you're not taking care of yourself. As opposed to reducing stress, you're increasing stress because you're not doing your normal workouts, you're not eating right, you're not exercising. If the run just feels like this stressor and you are taking care of yourselves in other ways, then that's an indication you can let that stressor go for the day and you can not run and kind of feel guilt-free. But I would definitely say if you're noticing other areas of your life where the self-care is falling apart, that's an indication that you want to stick to the running and keep that like the same.
Wow, that was a knowledge drop right there. A lot of really strong pointers, and I think ways of just helping us take some of the things that we might be aware of, and then, you know, turning that into action. And I think something that everybody's working on, whether you're aware of it or not, is actually your awareness, right? This is like the whole process of reflecting about your runs and how things are going and how things are affecting training, and all of the stuff that you put into your daily log, your daily training log every day is a process of building this awareness. So then you get to these moments where, you know, you're unsure, oh, am I building up too much stress? And you can start to go through those checklists like, okay, like, have I been prioritizing my sleep? Have I been meditating? Have I been, you know, taking a walk outside? Any of these things that you do for your own self-care, right? Like, I don't know, eating nourishing foods, watching Netflix if you're me, whatever it is, like all your self-care stuff. If you kind of have a short list and you take 2 seconds to reflect, oh my gosh, I missed all these things. You know, that's a strong indication that, like, maybe if I do this 10-mile run today, I'm going to kind of overdo it in the stress category because I haven't had any opportunity to, decrease my stress bucket, kind of get some of that stress out. We all have like a amount that we can tolerate. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And Kristen, huge. I think it's so important, the recognition of, if you want to train when it's busy, holidays are busy times, getting the run done first is absolutely critical. If that means waking up a little bit earlier so you can get 20 minutes in, you know, I think, yeah, if as long as you've been overall sleeping well, you know, it's okay to do that. Can be a little tougher on Christmas Day. Hey, that's all right. Maybe that's a day where we let it go. Maybe we do our run after breakfast or something, but we can still stick to that like 10 or 20-minute rule if there's other activities and family time that have to be done. But again, you know, another thing that I think that I like to use is if I'm like really forcing it into small spaces, I might decide that just the act of forcing the run in is too stressful for me. So that might actually tell me, hey, TJ, all right, let's, you know, we might as well use that 40 minutes to like have a nice lunch, just to take a break, to take a deep breath. Like, you don't have to just, every free space that you have over the holidays isn't necessarily a space where you need to interject a run into. So just be careful about that. We did get a comment here. Rebecca mentions that part of the stress for her comes from family members who don't quite understand why she runs. And every day she gets the question, are you going for another run?
I totally get that. I get that.
Gosh, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I went to college on the West Coast, and this has been like the theme of my life with my parents. My mom specifically is, I didn't have a lot of time at home with my family in college. So when I would come home, you know, it was like, oh, you just got here. Why are you leaving again to go run? Like, it was a conversation, to put it in, you know, PG terms, I guess. But, you know, I think that acknowledging the fact that that run is for you and for you, like, good for your mental space and your well-being, is something that's really important to communicate, because there is so much stress associated with the holidays. And sometimes, you know, like, the holidays aren't happy for everyone. And that's just, you know, that's just something that happens. And I think that if you need to take a minute for yourself, you should advocate for that.
Yeah, it's a
100%.
really great place to have good boundaries with your family, and they can give you a hard time. And I think it's important to like also be aware of what their needs are around the holidays and how you can support and all that stuff, and of course show up. But like, we are not required, or we are not responsible for other people's emotions and like making everything perfect for them and doing it all. Like, you show up, you're there, you're present, and all of that stuff, and that's great. And it's totally appropriate to be like, hey, I'm hanging out with you for 23 hours today, and for 60 minutes I'm going to go for a run, and that's a thing that I need to do for myself. And so practicing those boundaries, even though it's uncomfortable. So there's a good like acronym for boundaries: DEAR, describe, express, what is A? Hold on. Oh, assert, and then reiterate. So we tell them what our boundary is and why. It's really important for me to go running. I'm training for this race. It's part of my mental health. I do it 5 days a week. I've been on this schedule forever. I hope that you can recognize that and support me while I do that. And you assert that. And then if they ask you again the next day, you just reiterate it, and you do it over and over again. And like Pavlov, like, over time, well, I don't know, Kristen might argue with this, but hopefully over time it gets less and they understand and they're more accepting, and you don't have to keep explaining yourself. But that's a totally appropriate boundary to keep that's not harming anybody, and you can feel comfortable expressing that boundary.
Yes, persistence is key.
Sarah, can you state the acronym one more time? I kind of missed that.
Yeah, so it's DEAR, it's describe, express, assert, and reiterate. So you're saying what the boundary is, you're expressing the reason behind it or some of the feelings behind it, you're asserting it, so being like really clear and making sure that the person knows exactly what that boundary is, and then just reiterating it as needed when somebody pushes back, which the more that we need a boundary, the more likely it is that the other person will push back. And so if somebody pushes back, that doesn't mean the boundary is bad. It just means that you have to work on that reiterating part.
Totally. I think and that is one of our biggest points here in kind of how to manage things over the holidays is like that practice of setting boundaries. And it is a practice. Like, I feel like you use that word really deliberately, Sarah, because it's something that I think we have to engage with and engage in every single day, just like, positive self-talk or self-belief or meditation or running. All of these things are practices. We engage with them all the time. And boundary setting is one of those things. And that, just because it's the holidays, doesn't mean that goes out the window. And you mentioned, like, we mentioned like that kind of like that back and forth between all the obligations, right? Like the white elephant party this day and the Friendsgiving that day, and like all of these things that we have. And that can be really tough. I find it especially tough for myself because like I feel like I'm more of an introverted type, and like I kind of get drained by social situations. And so if I do too much socializing at once or in a short period of time, I get like really grumpy and like really tired. And so, having those boundaries and being able to say no to certain things, I think is really important. And Sarah, you mentioned it, like, what we do, we're not responsible for other people's emotions. So if somebody is upset by our boundary, that's kind of, I don't know any other way to phrase it, but that's just kind of tough. You need to respect your own boundaries. Don't backslide. If you set a boundary that you need to keep, and that helps you with your own mental health and your own stress management, be firm with those boundaries. Again, like, reiterate, assert yourself. It is hard, but it's a practice. Every day you have an opportunity to do it, and it becomes more natural over time. I know that there's also this kind of like thing where we feel like we're letting someone down. Like almost always when we decide to set a boundary, we might be letting somebody down, and that can be really hard. It can be, and I know for a lot of people, especially for myself, it can be hard to just say, well, that's tough, because you care. And so many people on these calls, you know, we're all so empathetic and compassionate that we do care. And sometimes that leads to the disintegration of all boundaries, at least in my life. So I would say, again, refer to assert and practice. Really, really helpful. And just note, like, it's okay to sometimes let people down. You have to pick and choose the moments where it's okay to let go of a boundary and do something for somebody else. And when, you know, you have to kind of prioritize those things. Sarah, I don't know if you have a better way of describing that. Or Kristen.
Of describing like just being okay with disappointing people sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
like
don't know that there's
prioritizing
really,
that.
yeah, I think it is like, you're just not alone. I mean, it's hard for everybody. And like I said, you know, when we need the boundary and we lay it, if we really need it, the other person will push back, and it will make it hard. Like, it will make you doubt yourself. That's sort of the hardest part about setting boundaries, is if somebody doesn't like it, they'll make you doubt it. And so I think one of the really key points, and it's sort of similar to when we were talking about like making your plans and planning ahead and scheduling things, it's really thinking about these things and reflecting on your boundaries in a time of calm and with some distance, and going into situations feeling comfortable and confident about what you've thought through. Because when you're in the moment and the other person's talking to you, there's a lot of emotions that come up. And when the emotion part of our brain's activated, it actually makes it harder for us to access the rational and thinking part of our brain. And so you're less likely to make great decisions when you come from an emotional place. So I really encourage you, like, heading into family events or places where, you know, emotions are high, that you take the time to reflect on these things ahead of time, so you like know what your boundaries are and can stand for them.
100%. 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, Kristen, you mentioned, and I kind of mentioned it at the beginning of the call, but the holidays aren't always fun for everybody, right? Like, sometimes the holidays are tough. Like, they bring up challenging memories, past history, and they're rather complicated. And I think it's important to recognize the fact that yeah, sometimes you just need to give yourself the space during the holidays to kind of express the things that you feel. And to do that with, like, self-compassion, and without judgment. This is like one of the key, I think was like one of the key points of Sarah's tips in the newsletter, was just acknowledging that it's okay to feel off during the holidays, that it's okay to take some of the expectations of it being like this Merry Christmas kind of thing, to take some of those expectations like off your shoulders or whatever, take that weight off your back, because these times are, yeah, they're complicated. And I think especially for, you know, people who have lost loved ones over the pandemic, you know, and childhood history and like all of this stuff, it just becomes challenging. Like, I know, at least for me, with my family on Christmas morning, like, there's almost always a blow up. And so I always have like an anxiety about, like, all right, who's blowing up this year, you know, like, who's not going to like their present or something so silly as that. And I like, and I know, like, there's far more complicated and much deeper, I think, things happening for some people there than that too. But I want you to know, like, it's okay to reflect on that in your training logs. It's okay to externalize that to your coach. You know, I'm not a psychotherapist, but I am a great listener. I may not be able to respond with active steps to help you work through something like that. but I can respond with validating comments and love and support. And all of your coaches can do that. So if you're experiencing something over the holidays that's challenging, my biggest takeaway from point number 5 here from the newsletter is to externalize those big feelings. Don't push them back inside. Kristen, I know you brought this up. I don't know if it was something personal for you and no need to share, but I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. And then I'd love to hear from you too, Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to overshare. I mean, like, life is hard. People are people, like, we're all humans. We react and respond to things differently. Not everyone has great holiday memories. And it's everything that TJ said, I 1000% agree with. I think one thing that that has helped me and people that I know who struggle with the holidays is to, have an accountability buddy. If you need time alone, great, fine, take that, but make sure you have someone who will check in on you, who will either invite you out for a run or bring over Christmas cookies or something. Just like, don't let yourself be alone for too long. Reconnect with people from your hometown, reconnect with your high school friends, reconnect with your family. Try to stay busy. I don't know. I think that it's tough, and everyone's experience is so unique. So I think that as long as you're doing your best, that's all I can ask.
100%. And you should, I'll validate that right now. Your best is always going to be good enough. Whether you believe that or not, it's true. And we want to bridge that gap between you not believing that it's enough and it actually really being enough. So that way you can feel better in those tough times. I think it's just so natural when certain times of the year bring up challenging memories. And I just don't know anybody who doesn't go through this a few times every year, whether it's the holidays or something else that reminds you of a challenging life moment, past history. And it's very easy to want to isolate. And Kristen is 100% right. Even if you need space, have that accountability buddy. I mean, that is such a good tip. Have that person who's going to bring you Christmas cookies, whatever it is that's going to check up on you. And don't be afraid to lean into that support when someone offers it to you. I know that for a lot of us, especially for me, when I'm going through a hard time, I don't want to ask for help. It's really can be tough. And so, you have to actively say, okay, this is a hard moment. I know what I want to do is just go sit in my office, but what I have to do is reach out. And so, if you're feeling down, if you're having a moment like that, leaning into your friendships, leaning into your passions and your support, rather than grabbing onto that wantingness to pull away, I think can be really important. Because if we're having the blues or we're depressed, there is that kind of feeling really fights us. It's very hard to want to reach out to a friend or get that support. Everything kind of points you towards the other direction, which is what Kristen mentioned, is really isolating yourself. And so, try to fight that as much as you can. I would say lean on your friendships or support, lean on your coach a little extra if you need to. That's perfectly acceptable. And again, don't be afraid to put yourself out there a little bit and get vulnerable. I think part of a life well lived is about, getting more and more vulnerable. Yeah, Sarah, can you expand on that a little bit? Just kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, what to do when you're not really feeling it, if some memories come up or kind of feeling down.
I think the first thing to like keep an eye out for is just like a lot of this, the stuff that makes it harder is the comparison piece. Like a lot of the reason that people have a difficult time is like they're alone and they think they're like supposed to be with family because other people are with family, or they're with family that they don't get along with, and they think they're supposed to be holding hands and singing Kumbaya with their family, or they're grieving, or they're super stressed that they think that they're supposed to have like made the sugar cookies and the gingerbread house and gotten all the teachers' gifts done a week early, right? Like they're comparing themselves to other people. So like the first thing that I would do is like check that out. Like, are you comparing yourself? Is your disappointment or the feelings that you're having about how you're doing and how your Christmas is supposed to be, is that like, where's that coming from? And is it because you're comparing it to how others is, you know, on Instagram or something, or like the Hallmark movie you just watched, right? So like really thinking about the comparison piece and trying to let go of that. And then I think that leads into like setting yourself up with realistic expectations ahead of time. So, right, like TJ touched on, you know, like maybe having some introvert tendencies and really needing to recharge some points during his week, or like on Christmas morning, there being blowups with his family. And so like he can prepare for that going in and like know that there are going to be the moments when he might need to take a break, or that, hey, things are going to get crazy on Christmas morning, like they always do. And then it'll be over and we're going to move on just like we always do. And that makes the moment better. So, you know, thinking about those expectations, letting go of any like need for things to be perfect, and recognizing like we are humans, we aren't actors in a Hallmark movie where like everything just is like written out and gets executed perfectly. Like there are shipping delays and stores don't have things in stock, and like all of these things, like any number of things can go wrong, and that's not a reflection on who we are as people. And so, you know, I think the expectation piece is really big. And so in terms of like, how do I deal with that? You know, asking yourself questions like, who's expecting me to do, like Christmas cards? I will say, like, I have a stack of Christmas cards that I ordered at the end of November and have not yet addressed. And every time I look at them, I have to send Christmas cards. And it's like, well, why? Who's expecting my Christmas card? No one. Like, this is just for me, right? Like, nobody cares if I get them. My mom might like to have one, right? And so like, stepping back and realizing like this pressure is totally internal, right? And if it was like my mom's calling me every day and telling me to get my Christmas cards in the mail and it's an external stressor, then I can set the boundary. So I'm like looking to see where the pressure is coming from. If it's coming from inside myself, I try to have some compassion for myself. And if it's coming external, then I try to set a boundary with the person who's giving me that pressure. And then the other piece, so that's like sort of how we deal with the pressure stuff. And then for the big feelings, like, yeah, calling on a friend, not trying to fake it, right? So like you're grieving, it's the holidays, you miss somebody really important to you. There's a reminder when a song comes on. And if you try to tell yourself that you're not supposed to have that feeling, or that that feeling's not welcome, then you're just suffering in that moment. You're by yourself in this moment of grief and like really alone, and nobody needs to be doing that, right? We can tell somebody that we're suffering, and we can have compassion for ourselves in that moment. So just like, yeah, express your feelings. If it's journaling, if it's calling a friend, if it's just saying, you know, to the host at a party, I need to walk away. I just need a few minutes, right? Like allowing yourself that space is, yeah, absolutely essential. Like you're feeling, because the feelings will be there whether or not you want them to be or not, and you can try to stuff them down, and that's just not gonna end up anyplace good. And along with that, I would just say like manage alcohol. You know, if you're like struggling with big feelings and you're not expressing them, then it's really not a great idea to drink, and you'll find you're expressing them in ways that you don't intend later. Yeah, and then just managing stress, sort of like how we talked about at the beginning.
Thank you. Yeah, that was again, yeah, both of you guys, you and Kristen, offering just such really good pointers there that I think everybody should take with them on Christmas over the Christmas holiday, whatever holiday you're celebrating. every household has its challenges. I think that it's very unrealistic. Maybe don't watch any Hallmark films, which is an unfortunate favorite in my house. I just can't do it. I can't do it, but they sure love it. Anyways, let's segue just in our maybe our last 10 minutes or so, just to some training tips for the holidays. And this kind of stuff is probably review for a lot of people. We're just taking, I guess, kind of microcosm principles and really just applying them to the holidays. I think, the first one, probably the most relevant, or one of the most relevant ones when we're thinking about our training, is we're all just time crunched. And I think we kind of even mentioned this a little bit earlier. Plan ahead as much as you can, but just know, like, travel, family obligations, whatever it is, don't force your workouts if it doesn't feel right. If you need to take a couple days off, it's no big deal for most of the athletes on this team. Honestly, you guys are all, like, 99% of you are all so freaking consistent that taking 1 or 2 days off, you've earned so many extra rest days because you're so consistent that you can just let that go. And I think that's an important practice for a lot of people. We're training, we're very focused, we're goal oriented, even though maybe we should be a little less. It's just part of the program, right? So use this as an opportunity to hold your training loosely. We talk about this a lot, holding your training loosely, but it's really important. Like, it's not the end all be all. And, maybe post holidays, if you've missed a couple runs, it could be worthwhile investigating kind of how you felt about missing those runs. And I don't even like the word miss, because I think that it really should be a framing of, I decided to rest, because rest is just as important as running. And I think a lot of people could probably use a little extra rest, especially during the holidays. So if you're holding on for dear life to getting that run in, that could be a sign that you're not holding your training loosely enough, and could really set you up for challenges later if the training is derailed by injury or something else. So again, I'd really recommend, if it comes down to needing to squeeze a run into a small amount of time, that's a great indication that you should rest. Yeah. And, just know you can always do a workout or something, the next day. We're pretty flexible. We've gotten more flexible. I don't know how many of you guys, I've only got a couple of you guys in the yellow logs left on my roster, which is like the OG log format. You guys might know when we were a little less flexible. But we've all become more flexible about the training. And I think it's super important over the holidays to use this as a time to exercise that flexibility. Also, like, a great way to check in with yourself about whether or not you're forcing that run is, you can just ask yourself, will this training be productive today? And I love that question, because that kind of like should underlie a lot of the challenging days that you have, whether it's during the holidays, whether it's regarding like uncertainty around like an injury, a niggle, something like that, or stress at work, or lack of sleep, or not feeling motivated on a given day. I always ask myself, will this training be productive if I go out and do it? And if the honest answer is no, great, let's flex flexibility. Let's hold the training loosely. Great opportunity just to kind of like take a step back and get that extra rest day in. I know a lot of you guys like to use treadmills in winter. So another kind of like training tip and guideline is, like, if you can easily get 10 or 20 minutes on your treadmill, but you think it's more advantageous to go out and run, but that might be more stressful for you because of the time driving to a trailhead, whatever it is. It's okay to use the treadmill. The treadmill is not, it's not like this thing that we don't want to use, like not an oh no tool. Like treadmills are great. I have so many athletes who use the treadmill very successfully. And I think on really busy days, the treadmill is like, or if the weather's bad, the treadmill is an awesome, awesome tool. So don't judge the treadmill. If you have access to one and that's easier for you to get on the treadmill than it would be for you to go to a trailhead and do your run on trails or whatever it is, just hop on the treadmill. Totally cool. Yeah.
You can also Zwift on treadmills now.
Ooh.
Gonna slide that in there.
The Alp to Zwift on the treadmill, that could be one heck of a holiday.
Oh, I tried it recently and it did not go over well. So who can run up the Alp to Zwift has all the kudos for me.
Yeah. Maybe there's a couple euros out there. Definitely not me.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I think one of my favorite points in this whole thing, and we touched on it a little bit earlier. The holidays are tough. Just do your best. Don't apologize. Please do not apologize if you miss a run. Don't apologize for doing your best. Sometimes your best is resting. In fact, for so many of you, your best is resting. Trust me on this. More rest is advantageous. More is not the answer. So, use this holiday season as an opportunity. One, don't apologize for resting. Rest is training too. Rest is where adaptation takes place. Even if that rest was like Netflix, couch, hot cocoa, whatever it is, don't apologize. You don't need to sit down and read training methodology, go on trailrunner.com and look up how to be more mentally tough. Like, your rest days are your rest days. I really prefer my athletes don't check in on rest days because I want you to engage in something else, whether that's family time, whether that's a hobby that you love, reading a book, whatever, making a great meal for you and your family. Something other than running is really critical to engage with. And so I don't like it when my athletes check in to tell me what they did on their rest day, because I assume that they're doing something not running related. And that's really, really healthy. And so if I don't hear from you on Christmas Day, I'm going to assume that you're with your family, you're doing something non-running related. And that's really healthy. That's doing your best. Don't apologize to me for that or any of the other coaches, because we fully support you and we fully support that. Yeah, I mean, we've only got a couple of minutes left. And maybe we'll just kind of, just finish this out with like the last kind of two, I guess, like key points. One, we already touched on it again. Consistency is important, but, check out your priorities. Family always comes first. Don't apologize for time with family. If that means missing a run, refer to this part of the conversation about rest. And again, don't sweat the small stuff. If like you were working super hard, you got up early, did what Kristen said, which is like on the holidays, sometimes you just got to get up early to do your run. And that's really key. And I know that's what I'll be doing. But if you're a mile under, or you cut it short by a half an hour, whatever it is, don't make a big deal about that. That's okay. That's another part of holding the training loosely. I would invite you all to do a mile less on Christmas Day or the day after Christmas or on Christmas Eve. That's a challenge for you guys going into the new year, to do a little bit less, because so often, I know, like, I talk about this with Zoe, with Kristen, Kylie, Sarah, Drew, like all of our athletes, like we all are high achievers, and we have the tendency, even when we're checking in with ourselves, we're referring to Sarah's kind of self-awareness checklist that she mentioned earlier, and we see all of these things that might potentially be red flags of stress, we all still do too much. We do 10 miles instead of 8. We do 6 miles instead of 4, 4 miles instead of 2, whatever it is for you. This is a decision that I see people making every single day in the training log. So like my challenge for you guys is to use the holidays in this time of year to do less. More is not advantageous in the training process. It almost always leads to injury and burnout. Take that advice to heart. If there's one thing that you can learn from this, is more equals shorter running career. Less and checking in with yourself and being very honest with those red flags leads to longevity and a lot of like just joy, happiness in the process, and success along the way, because you're going to be running more, because you're going to be injured less. Yeah, thank you guys. I know that was a bit long-winded and we definitely kind of glossed through some of the training stuff. So I would invite you guys to, again, this is out there. This is in the blog. This is in the newsletter this week. This will be on YouTube and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know if Sarah, Kylie, Kristen, if you guys have any, I don't know, just closing remarks. We're closing in on the end of 2021 here. This is our last call of the season. Yeah, but anyways, thank you guys.
I don't know if I have any closing remarks.
That's all right.
But
You
yeah,
did great.
go easy on yourself, guys. Have a good holiday.
Don't restrict food.
Yeah.
Oh, Kylie,
More
coming
cookies, the
in.
better.
I'm gonna update the blog. I can't update the newsletter, but I can update the blog. The number one most important thing you can do this holiday is eat a lot of cookies.
Lotzi agrees. Yay, eat cookies.
Bowie ate an entire thing of Abe's mini muffins. I'm so upset.
Oh,
Sarah,
no.
Sarah, any kind of closing thoughts here? Kylie came in with the nutrition heater at the 5 o'clock hour. Make sure you eat those Christmas cookies. No restricting calories. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just say, like, if you're feeling super grumpy around, like, if you're just like feeling irritable and not able to be having a good time, that is a good, that's a good sign to just take a break. And just like, let you, like, especially talking to people who are like feeling really overwhelmed with all the things that they have to do. Who are like feeling overwhelmed and have like so much on their plates, like that's a sign to take something off of your plate. Like, you are also allowed to enjoy this time. And if you're like so focused on making everybody else enjoy this time and you're not enjoying it, then like, that's what I mean when we talk at the beginning about like, don't just give to others, but give to yourself. Like, make this season what you want from it too. And so, yeah, that would be my last piece of advice.
Thank you, Sarah. That was awesome. Well, happy holidays to everybody. I hope you guys have a wonderful time. Yeah, you're enough. You're loved. We appreciate you so much. Can't wait to see everybody in 2021 and in the training logs. All right. Have a good night. Bye.